Canelo Alvarez gives his take on the David Benavidez fight and makes it sound suspiciously like what's going on with Gervonta Davis and Devin Haney when he brings in who can send offers and who cannot, and what the other person brings to the table. In one scenario, people are calling it a duck. Is it a duck in the other scenario, in the logic of the same people? Let's talk about that very interesting conversation in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we are going to be talking about this absolutely ubiquitous term in the boxing world these days, ever present and monstrously overused term called ducking. And we have a scenario where big money man Canelo Alvarez gave an interview yesterday in which he talked about David Benavidez, who should, within the next 10 days, become his official mandatory for his next fight. And also, you have him, when he said this, he mentioned what David Benavidez has to offer and what he doesn't have to offer. Who can make offers to who? And it all sounded to me very similar to Gervonta Davis and Devin Haney conversation. And so I want to analyze what Canelo said. Is this really a case of him ducking David Benavidez? And if it is a case of Canelo Alvarez ducking David Benavidez, does that necessarily mean that Gervonta Davis is ducking Devin Haney? Now, before I get into the details, let me welcome you back to the channel. If you are new to the channel, please accept my invitation to hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you can be notified of when we release more videos. And if you're a longtime subscriber and supporter of the channel, thank you so much for your continued support. It really makes a big, big difference to the channel, immensely big difference to the channel, especially you guys in the super thanks, Matty O, Barbara D, Jay Miller, everybody else. Thank you guys so much. But let's get into this. First and foremost, let me tell you, I can't stand the word duck because I think that it is the most ill-defined and overused phrase in boxing over the last several years. It is worse than the judges in the fact that, in the sense that everybody can look at the fight, three people can look at the same fight and all come up with a different scorecard, right? It's very, very subjective. Boxing by nature is very, very subjective, unless, of course, you knock somebody out. Ducking, this phrase ducking, is also very subjective, of course, unless and even if you actually fight the person. Still can be considered a ducking somebody, even if you fight them. It is pretty amazing to me. But for the sake of this conversation, I have to define the word duck. Duck is not fighting someone that you have a responsibility to fight. Not fighting someone that you have a responsibility to fight. That is, to me, the only logical, workable definition for the word. Let me compare that to other definitions. Not fighting somebody when they ask to fight you. I would say that that's not a duck, just in and of its safe. If I say I want to fight you, my name is Keyshawn Davis, and I tell Keyshawn Davis tells Sabril Matias, I want to fight you. Send me the offer. And Sabril Matias, who's the 140-pound champion, does not send an offer to Keyshawn Davis, who's never fought at the weight class before and is still just got to contender status at 135. I would say that's not a duck. Why? Because he doesn't have a responsibility to fight him. Number one, he's not in the same weight class. Number two, he probably doesn't have the ability to do it because they fight on different networks. Okay? So that's what I would say. I want to distinguish what I mean by that. So when people are saying Canelo Alvarez, when Canelo Alvarez says, look, David Benavidez brings nothing to the table except for 25 extra pounds. And who are you to offer me? What did they say that I was offered and he couldn't really? It's like 50, 60 million. I can get that fighting anybody. So I can get that fighting anybody. The only thing that you're bringing to the table, and I assume he's saying beyond what other people are bringing, is 25 extra pounds. So does that fit does that fit the category of a duck? Does he have a responsibility to fight him and he's not fighting him? Because number one, again, you have to actually not fight him. Number two, you have to have a responsibility to fight him. Okay. And I should add a third. You have to be able to fight him. You have to be able to fight him. If the other person's not available to fight, how can you duck him if he's not available to fight? Right. So actually, there should be a third one there. But you get my point. I would say this is a duck the second that once David Benavidez fight is ordered or David Benavidez requests the WBC to issue the mandatory. And the WBC has already said that he is going to be the person that they issue the mandatory for. If David Benavidez gets that and then Canelo Alvarez says no, that is, in my book, a duck. Because he's your mandatory, right? You can't be ducking him this week. Why? Because he's got a fight coming up with Jaime Munguia. Okay? Can't be ducking him this week because he's got a fight with Jaime Munguia coming up. All right. And by the way, I do believe the PBC offered the fight for David Benavidez to take place in September anyway. So that was the offer that he was given. It was Jamal Charlo, and then changed to Jaime Munguia. Right. So will it be if he doesn't fight him in September? Say he loses? No. If he loses to Jaime Munguia and he rematches Jaime Munguia, will he be ducking David Benavidez? No. If he doesn't fight David Benavidez after the WBC says, okay, this is officially the next one that you need to do, and then he doesn't do it, absolutely, that's a firm, solid duck if he drops his belt and doesn't do it. Okay, I don't think anybody can argue about that. I think that it is, while my definition of a duck is definitely conservative, I think that is an accurate use of the word. Now, let's just oppose that to Gervonta Davis and Devin Haney. Did Gervonta Davis duck Devin Haney? There are some similarities. Number one, Gervonta Davis is the A side, just like Canelo Alvarez is the A side, right? Devin Haney gains 25 pounds Devin Haney doesn't bring any extra money to the table, according to Leonard Ellerbe and the PBC, than anybody else does. That's the same argument that David Benavidez is making or Canelo's making about David Benavidez. You don't bring anything extra to the table, right? Both of those things are the same. Now, what about the responsibility to fight him by being the mandatory? No, that doesn't exist. What about the availability? What about the ability to fight because they're on the same network, just like Canelo Alvarez and David Benavidez is on the same network? That's not there either. So to me, it doesn't fit the characteristics. It is somebody that's at 140 and somebody that's at 135. If somebody at 140 wants to fight somebody at 135 and the 135-pound champion does not have a responsibility to do that. And if they're on different networks, like one is on DAZN and the other one is on Amazon Prime, is the other one going to come over there, or does he need to go over there? There's all kind of barriers to that. And when you look at the sport of boxing, you will see that these type of things happen on a regular basis, where one guy is on one network, the other guy's in another network. And even though those guys want to fight with each other, the contracts that they have with their relative networks may prevent that from taking place. So do you just assign blame to one fighter or the other and ignore the network difficulties? I would say not, right? But again, it's you having to understand what all the dynamics are in play in the way that boxing works, right? Now, if you have somebody that is with the same promotional company in the same weight class, one is ordered to fight the other guy, and it's not like he has other options. Because you can't duck 5 people all at the same time. If you're fighting one guy that you're supposed to fight, You can't fight all other 4 at the same time. So you can't say that Errol was ducking Jaron Ennis. Errol Spence was ducking Jaron Ennis while he was fighting Terrence Crawford, because that's a scenario where you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. And then you can have what we're getting now, which was everybody calling everybody a duck for every single solitary thing that leaves everybody's mouth, which is just absolutely ridiculous. It's not fair to anybody. And it sets an expectation for people about fights that would get made, that can get made, that really can't get made. And if they can't get made, and the reason that they can't get made is not related to the desires of the fighters. It's just a fact. And you may not like that fact, but it's still a fact nonetheless. So in my opinion, no, Gervonta's not ducking Devin Haney, and Canelo Alvarez would be ducking David Benavidez if he doesn't fight him after he beats Jaime Munguia and the WBC actually orders the fight, because David Benavidez is clearly the number 2 guy in that division, and Canelo Alvarez holds all 4 belts, and David Benavidez deserves that shot at those titles, aside from whether or not he has anything but 25 pounds to offer Canelo in that fight. But anyway, that's my take on the matter. Please let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Deuces.